I'm Shelby Feinberg.
Okay, Shelby. And how long have you been a member here?
Since October 2013, so not too long.
And is this the first time that you've done a nutritional challenge of some kind?
Yes, challenge-wise. Not my first. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change, but the first challenge where I'm pushing myself to try and beat others.
Yeah.
This is the first one.
So how was the dynamic of having a competition? How did that work for you?
I loved it. It's so much easier to push yourself when not only are you going against other people, but you have a support system in place. And so, it's not like we were looking for other people to cheat so we can beat them. It was all a really good group dynamic where it's all support. And if you do fall off the wagon, people are there to help you, get back up, and they understand. So I liked the challenge part.
Did you use the Facebook group?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Helpful?
It was so helpful.
Okay, so what was your biggest fear going into the challenge?
My biggest fear was that I would cheat and not own up to it, because I just thought if no one else knew, then it wouldn't be a big deal and I could still go past it. And I found myself, when I did have little cheats in between, that I had major guilt not putting it into my log. So I would write these long explanations about why I cheated and how I felt after. And it was just a huge fear of mine going in. I think I even wrote it on my sheet I filled out, that I was afraid that I wouldn't hold myself up to the standard of the challenge. So.
And how do you feel you did with that?
I did good with my long explanations, and with every cheat, I knew how food affected me and what to stay away from after the challenge was over. So it was almost like each cheat was a learning experience, which I liked a lot.
So tell me something that you learned from eating something that with your body, or
I should really stay away from dairy. Just completely cut dairy out of my life, which is going to be hard because there's nothing I like more than a cheese plate and wine and cereal and anything that has to do with dairy. So I think the biggest thing I learned is that it's really not worth it anymore. Which is funny because I was talking with people who did the challenge, and just little things I've brought back into what I eat this week. I felt so out of balance, and I'm not sleeping well, and my allergies have come back, that it's completely not worth it. It's really been, I'd say Wednesday it hit me that I feel this way because I'm no longer eating as clean as I was. So
wow. So were you surprised about the dairy?
Yeah. Huge shock.
You didn't expect it?
I didn't expect it because it was such a staple part of what I ate beforehand. I mean, I've gone through diets where I cut out, grains, and I cut out all white flour and stuff like that. And alcohol, I've cut that out before, but I've never done a full no dairy. And so it started making me think that everything before, the little hurdles, the last 5 pounds I couldn't get over, or gaining back so quickly, was because I wasn't cutting such a key part of my everyday life out.
And tell me, before the challenge, did you feel bad? Did you feel like, oh, I feel terrible all the time, I feel really crummy? Or did this challenge make you aware of that?
It made me more aware of it. The biggest thing that I saw in the challenge was how fast I could bounce back after a WOD, when before I would go home and it would take me 30-40 minutes just to be able to get in the shower or something, because I'd just be so exhausted. And so after this, I could get up and I'm fine. I'd be down to do another workout. And so that was the biggest thing, was that I noticed things that I thought were normal before weren't really normal. It was just, I was so used to being exhausted, and the little things like running 400 meters now, it's not to where, it's still tough, but it's not to where I'm after 100 meters, I need to stop and breathe. So it's a lot of things that I didn't think were so bad before that now I'm how did I survive?
What do you think is the biggest element that impacts that recovery? Do you think it's mostly the food, or do you think it was the increased workouts? Or
I think it was a little bit of both. I think my endurance has really gone up, which part of me I want to believe that even if I hadn't have done the challenge, just pushing myself in CrossFit after so many months, it would have happened. But I really think the biggest thing was the food, because I wasn't, I wasn't eating such heavy meals, and I was really trying to space out when I ate, so I wouldn't have these insane hunger cravings at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I know I'm going to go to CrossFit at 5:30. And so I really think the food is just a huge part of it. And I never was a believer that it's all about what you eat. I thought if you just work out, you can get through it and lose the weight. But it's what you put in your mouth. It's the biggest part of it.
So a lot of people say that 80% of your diet is what impacts your performance at the gym. Would you agree with that statement now?
100%, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of it.
Right. You can't just work. You can't outrun your fork. And,
no, you can't. You can't work off if you're putting that much of not negative foods, but foods that we weren't meant to digest. And I love Lauren when she says, if your grandmother wouldn't recognize it, don't eat it. But if you're putting that much stuff, you can do 100 wads a day, and you're not going to be able to run it off because the day before you might not have exercised, but you're still eating just as bad. So I think it's 80 to 100% of what you put in your mouth can change everything.
Were there any other results that you got mentally, like sleep, anything like that was surprising to you?
Sleep was a huge thing. Not that I don't sleep long hours, but I used to have a really hard time falling asleep. And I would just lay in bed for like an hour. I would read, I'd try counting, and now I can get in bed and 20 minutes later I'm out cold, like someone has hit me over the head with a rock. So sleep was a huge thing, and just how I feel. I was a kid growing up who had an awful immune system, and every year during wintertime would get sick, and January would be an awful month for me. And this is the first year I didn't get a flu shot because I felt like I felt fine during the winter months. I haven't gotten sick yet. I stopped taking allergy medicine. It's just a huge, huge thing. And it's tough. My mom's a nurse, and so she's like, you have to get a flu shot. You have to take vitamins. And it's to the point where I'm explaining to her, I feel fine. I feel great. My immune system feels great. I'm not lethargic every day. I'm sleeping well. So that was the biggest notice for me. The weight was great and endurance is great, but little things that I'm so used to year after year, getting strep and getting sinus infection, and this is the first year I haven't had anything. I haven't had doctor's appointments, so it's been huge. Yeah.
Wow. Was there anything that you would tell to people that are on the fence about doing a challenge, if we have another challenge at any time, that they're like, oh, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to cut this out of my diet or that? What would you say to somebody that's on the fence?
I just think, like in my experience, I've tried Weight Watchers, I've tried everything, and this was the first time where as many fears that I had that it wouldn't work, it was worth trying, and it works. It works to just cut it out. And with a challenge, you think 6 weeks. You can do it. It's 6 weeks. And if you cheat, it's almost more of a learning experience because you're figuring out after the challenge what you can bring back in that can still work for you and what can't. So I think that it's easier to do when you look at it as more of a challenge than a diet or a lifestyle change, because it's something to push you. So I think if anyone's on the fence, you should jump over and just try it. And if it doesn't work, you can join my boat in the cheater's boat, because it happens. And I think there's a great number of people who made it completely clean, and I take off every hat I've ever worn to them. But I think I got more out of it because in the long run, now I know what doesn't work for me and how I can keep going and, RX and ring the PR bell more and drop a few more pounds and gain a little bit more muscle. So I say get off the fence.
Right.
Just try. No problem. Thank